When the sky turns into missile streaks, it's not a show, it's a warning, and the first wave always hides the second.
Holy war missiles tear across the Middle East night skies, a rain of Persian vengeance fire falling over cities in Israel, aircraft carriers, and American bases. The Iranian retaliation for the death of its supreme leader has begun, turning the region into a battlefield consumed by infernal fire. The sound of sirens and explosions echoes across multiple countries as the Tehran regime demonstrates its ability to strike several targets simultaneously. Persian fire is not just a metaphor but a burning reality for millions of people under attack.
Sirens across multiple countries mean coordination, and coordination means a target list. The next part starts right where power goes empty.
The death of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, after 36 years in power, left a vacuum now filled with violence and uncertainty. The regime's response is not merely a show of strength, but a vow of revenge with global consequences. In Washington and Tel Aviv, generals analyze the damage while the world watches the escalation of a conflict that threatens to spiral out of control. Each missile launched is a step toward total war, with the potential to redraw the map of power.
With no leader, Iran wants revenge. With generals counting damage, the world holds its breath. Now the question is who pays?
Tell me if you think Americans and Israelis are right to forcibly topple yet another regime, even with so many victims. Tell me if you believe more in diplomacy. And finally, share whether you think the nation with the most devastating arsenal or the one with the greatest willingness for sacrifice has the better chance of success. Just a reminder, this report is based on news from Sky News, The New York Times, BBC, The Guardian, Al Jazeera, Sputnik, RT News, and Telegram. But before we get into the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Your subscription means a lot and helps you stay updated on every story about the raging nations. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up to help this project grow even more.
If you think toppling regimes fixes anything, wait. Behind the fire comes succession. And in Iran, succession decides war.
News of Khamenei's death was received in Tehran with a mixture of shock and preparation. The government acted carefully to announce the loss to the people, seeking to project an image of control and continuity even after the decapitation of its leadership. Immediately, an interim council was formed to manage the transition. Ayatollah Alireza Arafi, a 66-year-old cleric from the regime's inner circle of trust, was appointed to head this committee, assuming the supreme leadership on a temporary basis. Arafi, a member of the powerful Guardian Council, represents the fusion of religious authority and political weight that defines Iran's power structure. His appointment signals an attempt to maintain stability while the real succession battle begins behind the scenes. For more than 3 decades, Ali Khamenei shaped Iran with his anti-Western and expansionist vision. He survived numerous crises, consolidating near absolute power and leaving behind a legacy that his potential successors now fiercely compete to inherit and preserve. 4 names emerge as the main candidates for the new supreme leader. Among them is Khamenei's own son, Mojtaba, whose possible hereditary rise faces strong internal resistance, adding another layer of complexity to Iran's already tense power struggle.
A controlled announcement, an interim council, a family clash. This isn't ceremony, it's an internal fight, and some names in Qom hit hard.
Mohammad Mehdi Mirbagheri, an ultra-conservative cleric in his 60s, is one of the favorites. His aggressive rhetoric against the West and his leadership role at the Islamic Sciences Academy in Qom make him a natural heir to Khamenei's hardline path. In contrast, Hassan Khomeini, grandson of the Islamic Republic's founder, is seen as a moderate. At 53, he advocates a controlled opening of the country, but his lack of experience in central state positions may weigh against his candidacy. Mojtaba Khamenei, 56, holds strong influence over the Revolutionary Guard, a powerful advantage. However, the idea of a dynastic succession is taboo, creating a dilemma for the elite seeking a strong and legitimate successor. Alireza Arafi, the interim leader, is also in the race. His current position gives him visibility and room to maneuver, but the final decision will rest with the Assembly of Experts, a body of clerics that will choose the most powerful man in Iran. The comparison among the candidates reveals an internal struggle between hardline continuity and a possible, albeit timid, opening. The choice of Khamenei's successor will define not only Iran's future, but also the balance of power across the Middle East, if they survive this war.
When picking a successor reshapes the Middle East, the president has to look unbreakable, and missiles become instant political leverage.
As the succession unfolds, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, who survived the attack that killed Khamenei, adopts a defiant posture. He declares that revenge is not an option, but a duty and a legitimate right of his nation. Pezeshkian, a reformist elected in 2024, now finds himself forced to lead the military response. He claims Khamenei's death was a declaration of war against all Muslims, raising the rhetoric to a dangerous level. Iran's power structure quickly adjusted to the crisis. A temporary triumvirate composed of the president, the judiciary chief, and a jurist assumed executive leadership, ensuring the state continues functioning amid the chaos of imminent war. The arsenal at Pezeshkian's disposal is formidable. Iran possesses the most diverse and numerous set of ballistic and cruise missiles in the Middle East, with thousands of projectiles ready to be launched against any target designated by the regime. The priority targets of Iranian revenge are clear: American military bases spread across the region and the territory of Israel. Iran's armed forces, including the Revolutionary Guard, are on maximum alert, ready to execute large-scale retaliation orders.
Pezeshkian talks about duty, but duty needs reach, and Iran's missile inventory is bigger than most people realize.
Beyond missiles, Iran has demonstrated new capabilities, such as launching projectiles from submarines and the extensive use of attack drones. This diversity of attack vectors complicates the defense strategy of its adversaries, increasing the potential for damage. President Pezeshkian, despite his reformist platform, now speaks the language of war. He knows any sign of weakness could be fatal, both for his leadership and for the survival of the theocratic regime he represents on the world stage. The promise of revenge echoes across the country, uniting rival factions under the banner of nationalism and faith. Mourning Khamenei's death is turning into fuel for the Persian war machine, which now moves with fury and determination. The coming days will be crucial to understand the true scale of the Iranian response. The question is not whether Iran will retaliate, but how devastating that retaliation will be, and what the consequences will be for the stability of an already burning region. The interim leadership under Arafi and Pezeshkian's government operate in tense coordination. They must demonstrate strength to satisfy internal demands for revenge while calculating the risks of a total war against two nuclear powers.
When drones and submarines enter the game, defense turns into a gamble, and the first casualty count is usually where panic starts.
The first wave of Iranian revenge was brutal and precise. More than 120 Americans and Israelis were hit in the initial attacks, a number that shocked the world and demonstrated the lethality of the Persian arsenal even against sophisticated defenses. 3 American service members were killed and 5 others were seriously wounded, according to confirmation from United States Central Command. The Pentagon described the situation as fluid without publicly detailing exactly where the casualties occurred, increasing tension and uncertainty. In Israel, the number of victims was even higher. A consolidated report points to 9 dead and 121 injured across different locations. the city of Beit Shemesh, west of Jerusalem, was the hardest hit, with 8 deaths. A single Iranian ballistic missile struck a residential building in Beit Shemesh, causing massive destruction and multiple casualties. In Tel Aviv, a woman died after being hit by shrapnel, and dozens of buildings were damaged, spreading panic across the metropolis. In a bold demonstration of power, Iran also targeted the heart of American naval strength in the region. The Revolutionary Guard announced it launched 4 ballistic missiles at the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln, one of the United States' key military assets.
Numbers rise, cities shake, and even an aircraft carrier becomes a headline. But the missile's technical details say a lot about what's next.
The attack on the carrier was a clear message that no target is out of reach. The missiles used, likely from the Ghadar or Sejil class, were designed to overcome naval defense systems, representing a direct threat to American maritime supremacy. Despite the Iranian claim, CENTCOM denied that the USS Abraham Lincoln was hit. According to the American version, the Iranian missiles did not even come close to the ship, which continued its operations normally. The truth remains an unknown in the fog of war. Israeli defenses, including the renowned Iron Dome system, were partially overwhelmed. The saturation of targets, with multiple missiles and drones launched simultaneously, exposed vulnerabilities in one of the world's most advanced missile shields, a worrying fact for Israel. Iran's ability to inflict significant damage, even against technologically superior adversaries, reveals meticulous planning. The choice of weapons and targets demonstrates a calculated strategy to maximize the psychological and material impact of the retaliation for Khamenei's death. The first phase of revenge left a trail of destruction and a clear warning. Iran is willing to absorb the costs of a direct confrontation and has the means to bring the war to the heart of its enemies, a scenario feared by all.
If the Navy denies a hit, doubt becomes a weapon, and when shields get saturated, Gulf allies become unavoidable targets.
Persian fire did not remain limited to Israel and direct United States targets. Tehran's fury spread rapidly, striking American allies across the Gulf region and turning the conflict into a regional conflagration with unpredictable consequences. In Bahrain, home to the United States Navy's 5th Fleet, missiles struck the headquarters area in Manama. Videos confirmed direct impacts on the naval base, while other projectiles fell in nearby residential areas, spreading terror among the local population. In Qatar, the strategic Al Udeid Air Base, one of the largest American military installations abroad, was directly hit. Iranian missiles also damaged an early warning radar installation, causing shrapnel injuries and exposing the country's vulnerability. Kuwait was also dragged into the conflict. The Ali Al Salam Air Base came under attack, and Kuwait International Airport was struck by a drone, resulting in casualties and disrupting air traffic. The country's neutrality was violently ignored. In the United Arab Emirates, the scene was chaotic. Attacks struck Abu Dhabi near the airport and Dubai in areas such as Palm Jumeirah. 3 people died and dozens were injured, forcing partial airspace closure and flight suspensions.
Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, the Emirates, retaliation spreads fear and shuts skies. And that wakes up militias that live off chaos for years.
Saudi Arabia, Iran's historic rival, was not spared. Riyadh and the country's eastern region were targeted by missiles, although the government did not officially report casualties. The kingdom was forced to activate its defenses and reassess its position. Iraq and Jordan also felt the weight of Iranian retaliation. Explosions were reported near the American consulate in Erbil, Iraq, while Jordan intercepted missiles in its airspace, with debris falling over its cities and villages. Civilian populations across the region are desperately seeking safety. In cities like Dubai and Doha, once synonymous with luxury and stability, the rush to bunkers and shelters has become the new reality. The inferno in the Middle East has only just begun. Iran's strategy of striking multiple allies simultaneously aims to sow chaos and divide the coalition led by the United States. Each attack increases pressure on local governments to reconsider their support for Washington under the threat of further destruction. Insurgents and militias loyal to the Iranian regime, spread across countries such as Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, are likely to rise. Khamenei's death is the spark for a holy war that could further ignite the region through asymmetric attacks and terrorism.
When even Riyadh is on the route, nobody stays neutral, and insurgents love a vacuum. They strike where the rule of law disappears.
In response to Iranian aggression, the United States and Israel activated their joint operations, Epic Fury and Lion's Roar. These campaigns represent the combined force of two of the most powerful war machines on the planet, ready to annihilate their enemies. Operation Epic Fury, led by the United States, mobilized impressive military power. 2 aircraft carriers, including the USS Abraham Lincoln, were deployed to the region, accompanied by 5th-generation fighter squadrons such as the F-22 and F-35. Lion's Roar, the Israeli counterpart, represents the fury of a nation under attack. The Israel Defense Forces, with cutting-edge technology and sophisticated intelligence, launched a series of precise strikes against hundreds of military and strategic targets inside Iran. The firepower available to these operations is overwhelming. Tomahawk cruise missiles launched from ships and submarines, along with high-precision guided bombs dropped by stealth bombers, form the arsenal used to dismantle Iran's military and nuclear infrastructure. Intelligence is a crucial component. Spy satellites, reconnaissance drones, and a vast network of informants on the ground allow the United States and Israel to identify and destroy targets with surgical precision, theoretically minimizing collateral damage while maximizing effectiveness.
Joint operations kick off, and the sky becomes a fighter highway. Fun fact, a Tomahawk can fly for hours, hugging the sea.
19 American military bases spread across the Middle East serve as launch platforms for airstrikes and special operations. Thousands of soldiers, pilots, and technicians work relentlessly to maintain pressure on the Iranian regime in a sustained war effort. Regional allies such as Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, while publicly cautious, provide crucial logistical and intelligence support. Their territories host bases and allow coalition aircraft overflight, making them vital gears in the anti-Iran war machine. The declared objective of Operations Epic Fury and Lion's Roar is the total degradation of the Iranian regime. This is no longer about containment, but an attempt at regime change by eliminating Tehran's leadership, nuclear capability, and military power. The contrast in power is stark. On one side, Iran with its vast but technologically inferior missile arsenal and network of militias. On the other, the world's greatest superpower and the most advanced military force in the Middle East, united toward a common goal. The destructive and annihilating capacity of the United States and Israel is immeasurable. The question hanging in the air is not whether they can destroy Iran, but what the human and geopolitical cost of a military victory will be, and what comes next.
With dozens of bases as launch platforms, the pressure doesn't stop, and when leaders become targets, succession can turn into civil war.
The fate of the Iranian regime appears sealed in the eyes of Washington and Tel Aviv. The ongoing military operations aim not only at retaliation, but at the complete eradication of the threat that, according to them, the Islamic Republic represents to regional and global stability. The target list includes not only military installations but also the regime's leadership itself. The fact that President Masoud Pezeshkian was one of the targets in the strike that killed Khamenei indicates that no one in Iran's power hierarchy is safe. More deaths are expected. Western intelligence sources suggest that the 4 main candidates to succeed Khamenei are also in the crosshairs. The strategy appears to be decapitating any potential leadership before it can consolidate power. The possibility that figures like Mojtaba Khamenei or Mehdi Mirbagheri could be eliminated before even taking control creates a dangerous power vacuum. An Iran without clear leadership could fragment into rival factions, plunging the country into civil war. Among the candidates, only Hassan Khomeini, the moderate grandson of the founding Ayatollah, seemed to have any inclination toward diplomacy with the West. His elimination, along with the others, would close any door to a negotiated solution, leaving only the path of force.
Taking out candidates slams diplomacy shut and opens weeks of bombing, and every interception is expensive, even for Israel today.
The attacks are expected to continue until the strategic objectives of the United States and Israel are achieved. This could mean weeks or months of continuous bombardment, turning Iran into a field of ruins and further destabilizing the entire Middle East. The next targets will likely include command and control centers, Revolutionary Guard bases, uranium enrichment facilities, and the economic infrastructure that sustains the regime. The goal is the total collapse of Iran's power system from the inside out. The situation of civilian populations across the region is desperate. Missiles continue to fall without warning in cities in Iran, Israel, the United Arab Emirates, and other countries, turning daily life into a nightmare of sirens, explosions, and constant fear of death. The search for shelters has become routine for millions of people. Countries like Israel have an extensive network of public bunkers, but in many other places the population remains exposed and vulnerable with nowhere to run amid the crossfire. The positioning of regional leaders reveals the conflict's complexity. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, while viewing Iran as a threat, declared he will not allow his territory to be used as a base for attacks, fearing direct retaliation.
Targets become infrastructure, and civilians run for shelters. Meanwhile, leaders measure every cent.
Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan adopted a critical stance toward the attacks, accusing Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of provoking the escalation. He warned of a ring of fire in the Middle East and called for immediate de-escalation to prevent further bloodshed. Qatar, which hosts a major American base, found itself in a delicate position. It was forced to activate its air defenses against Iranian missiles while simultaneously trying to keep communication channels open with Tehran, exercising its traditional role as mediator. The United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, direct targets of Iranian retaliation, condemned the attacks and aligned more firmly with the United States-led coalition. For them, the Iranian threat has become a matter of national survival, overriding any other consideration. The war has exposed the deep divisions and fragile alliances of the Middle East. Each nation calculates its moves based on its own interests, trying to navigate a geopolitical landscape that shifts by the hour, with every missile launched and every life lost. The absence of a united diplomatic front to contain the crisis is striking. While some leaders call for calm, others appear willing to watch the destruction of the Iranian regime, hoping to reap the geopolitical rewards of a new regional power map. In the long term, the destruction of Iran could create an even more dangerous power vacuum. The rise of extremist groups, weapons proliferation, and chronic instability may become the dark legacy of this war, a high price to pay. The international community watches largely paralyzed as the conflict escalates. The United Nations issues ceasefire appeals that are ignored, while major world powers, such as China and Russia, observe with concern but limited capacity for direct intervention. The economic impact is already being felt globally. Oil prices have surged with the threat to maritime traffic in the Strait of Hormuz, and global financial markets are in free fall, reflecting risk aversion in the face of a war of unpredictable proportions. For the populations of Iran and neighboring countries, the future is uncertain and frightening. They are the primary victims of a conflict decided by distant leaders in climate-controlled war rooms, whose decisions carry life or death consequences for millions. The holy war declared by Iranian factions and the overwhelming response of their enemies have created a cycle of violence that will be difficult to break. The region is plunging into an era of darkness, where peace seems like a distant and unreachable memory. Tell me if you think Americans and Israelis are right to forcibly topple yet another regime, even with so many victims. Tell me if you believe more in diplomacy. And finally, share whether you think the nation with the most devastating arsenal or the one with the greatest willingness for sacrifice has the better chance of success. Thanks so much for sticking around until the end of the video. You're awesome, and I really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any updates on the raging nations. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up to help this project grow even more.